Good evening, and welcome to the Caring View, the online health and social care platform free to access to absolutely everybody. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe, give us a follow on whatever platform you are watching us on. We go live every single Tuesday across YouTube, across Facebook, across LinkedIn, across X, across Insta, something called Threads. I don't know what that is. But we're on there. If it's a social media platform, we're probably on that right now. So give us a like, give us a follow. Go to www.thecaringview.co.uk for all of our free resources, for all of our previous podcast episodes, our chat show videos, all about our sponsors, our suppliers. So go and check those out. Everything we do is completely free. It doesn't cost you anything at all. And the only reason we can do that is through the generous donations and support from our sponsors. So without further ado, roll call. We have Prosperwell, the UK's leading digital marketing agency. If you know Smooth Toby, Tea with Toby, then you will know Prosperwell. Go and check them out. We have CBAT, Care Business Associate Training. Good old Paul, he was on our show a couple of weeks ago. So for all of your health and social care training needs, do go check out CBAT. And I will say this every single week, and check out their CHAPS training because it's brilliant. And I've recently discovered they do train the trainer sessions as well. So go check out CBAT. We have Attis Care by Attis Insurance Brokers for all of your comprehensive care coverage and proactive risk management. Log My Care. I know after last week's episode, we had quite a bit of interest from people about Log My Care. So do go check out Log My Care. They do apparently still have a freemium version of their DSCR, but they are trusted by many care providers across the country. So do go check out Log My Care. And last but not least, go check out Florence, directly connecting healthcare professionals and organizations with shifts and training around the country. www.florence.co.uk. If you didn't catch all of those, don't worry, because they are running across the screen right now for you. I am one of your hosts, and I am joined by the ever fabulous, ever ageless, always said he looks younger than me and he's older than me, Mark Tarps. Good evening, Mark. How are you?
I'm good, thank you very much. How are you?
I'm so good, Mark. I am so good. I don't know whether I told you, but Stephen let me put a Christmas tree up. I know. It's dead exciting. But I'm not allowed to call it a Christmas tree. It's a Halloween tree. And it's even got a witch cat topper instead of an angel on it. So I am like all sailing out right now. I am like double toil and trouble. Something wicked this way comes. My house is amazing. So yeah, I'm fabulous. How are you?
Yes, not too bad. Busy, but good.
Are you getting Halloween?
No Christmas trees, no Halloween trees up in this household yet.
Boo. Boo. So tonight we're sticking on the CQC theme. We weren't live last week, but we did put out a pre-record, which actually had quite a lot of traction on it. So CQC is still obviously in everyone's forefront of their minds. And tonight we're looking at reflections from inspections. So have you gone through a CQC inspection recently under the newest Single Assessment Framework? If you have, don't forget to give those comments to us tonight. We will try and answer any questions that you've got as we go along. Or even if you just got some feedback that you want to share with us, please do let us know. I myself recently have gone through a CQC inspection, but I'm going to be on my best behavior because we've not received our feedback yet. And we're also joined by two other social care professionals tonight. So I want to introduce Jack Cook from First Thought Care Services. Good evening, Jack. How are you?
I'm very, very well, thank you. Good to be here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Jack. Where are you from? What you do?
So I'm Jack. I'm co-current registered manager and nominated individual of First Thought Care Services, based in Gloucestershire, and our service supports all ages up until 65, including children. With sort of mental health, learning disabilities, autism, and an array of different needs.
And then, well, I mean, NI and RM, you must be mad. You must have done something wicked in your past life to be an NI and an RM all in one. We're also joined by Keith from Apex Healthcare. Good evening, Keith. How are you?
Good evening, everyone. I'm good, thank you. So, yeah, I'm from Apex. We do domiciliary care, anything from short visits to 24-hour care. We're based in Reading in Berkshire. And yeah, our target market is private clients. That's the majority of clients we support, and we're trying to offer a premium service. So that's kind of our kind of niche and the clientele we kind of support.
Thank you very much. And thank you both for giving up your evenings to join us tonight. So the single assessment framework in my mind feels like it's been out for a long, long time, but actually it hasn't, and it is still very new. What were your initial thoughts, both of you? I'll come to you, Jack, when you first learned about the new framework, because obviously both of you haven't had that long between it rolling out and then having that inspection under it. What were your initial thoughts?
For me, it was really, really scary as to, okay, what do I need to change? It felt like everything needed to change that we was doing already. I don't think that there was enough at the time. Now CQC are saying much more around nothing to change. Carry on doing as you're doing. It's how we're inspecting. But I think at the time there wasn't enough of that. So initially, absolutely, I was crapping myself. It was scary. But I think through learning over time, it came to light much more around it's just carrying on doing what we're doing. It's just about how we evidence. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I think you're completely right. There was that lack of information. And I think anybody that doesn't know, we've got a whole CQC resource section on our website. So do go check that out. But we never planned to have a CQC section on the website. It was only because we had so many people contact asking for information and knowledge gaps in what the CQC had put out, maybe on a webinar or on a statement, and then people trying to fill those voids, which is where that came from. But Keith, what about yourself? What were your initial thoughts?
So our initial thoughts is we still had time. So I think it was one of those situations where, yeah, similar to the portal, you know the portal's out, and then you hear a lot of people struggling to get on, and we're like, okay, we don't quite need it now, so we'll wait till all the hype is over, and then hopefully there's a smooth kind of transition for us. So that was our initial kind of feeling of it. Like, yeah, I don't think we need to rush and look into stuff. We'll just kind of start adapting the service straight away. But then with our experience, I think we are probably one of the first providers to be inspected under the new framework. So there was some urgency to try and get a kind of a grip on it. And for example, like the first email we got advising us that we're going to have an inspection, they called it an assessment. So that word assessment was pretty strange. So we even had to go back to the inspector at the time and say, can you just clarify what an assessment is? So I think that the whole wording and concept that they were using just kind of just made it a bit of a gray area for us in terms of, yeah, what is happening next. So, yeah, I guess it was just that unknown aspect of, yeah, what to expect. That's how we felt like, yeah, are we ready? Do we feel we know enough on what they're going to be looking for? That's how we're kind of feeling in the beginning.
Sorry, Mark.
No, go on.
No, I was going to say it was one of those where I always likened it to the LPS because I mean I always said the LPS would come in sooner than the new single assessment framework would. I mean, we've still not got liberty protection safeguard, but I when they first announced a reform of the inspection process, I thought it was going to be a lot more drastic. I thought it was going to be like completely different to what it was, and you're right. I thought when it was put out to providers, there was this sense that actually everything's changing and you need to change the way you do everything yourselves. It wasn't just that this is an inspection framework change. I personally haven't seen much difference in the way we deliver what we do. I think what it has shown for me across the group and across the sector within social care is there's a huge lack of understanding around what regulations are. There's a huge lack of understanding around what quality statements are, and before then, what the CLOEs were and how we evidence that. I mean, I still think there's a huge deficit when it comes to completing PIRs, and the knowledge and the understanding of what it is that we put in a PIR. the CQC are regulators. They are here to make sure that we're meeting regulation, and that's the whole point of our inspections. And yet there are so many people out there supporting services as RMs, as NIs, as directors, who have no idea what regulations what. You know, they'll say, well, you breach regulation 17, and they're going, well, what the heck's that? Well, good governance. Something you should know as a provider, as a manager. So I think it's done a lot to highlight deficits within social care that we need to work on. And I think it's highlighted a lot within services across the country that they need to work on. But it's here, and the Penny Dash report has been postponed again. We're expecting it now in October. Whether we get that in October or not, we don't know. The interim report itself was pretty damning. CQC aren't fit for purpose. There's a lot that needs to be done. The grading of assessments is not transparent enough, and more support needs to be given to them. The way that they assess needs to be sorted out. We need to have our relationships officers back. So there's a lot that's to come out from the fallout of the Penny Dash report. So whether the single assessment framework stays in its current iteration or whether it's changed yet again moving forwards is to be seen. But I want to ask you both about your direct experience now with the single assessment framework. Go into as much detail or as little detail as you want. I understand, and it shouldn't be this way, and I'm not saying that you two feel this way, but I think it needs to be said that, for example, we have freedom to speak up. It's a huge part of our organizations. People need to be confident that they can bring up concerns. They can be confident that they can give feedback without repercussions. However, I feel a lot of people in social care are wary to speak so vocally and publicly around the CQC for fear of repercussions against their services. And I'm not saying that's how you both feel, but I will fully understand if you don't want to go into too much detail tonight. But just briefly around your experience with the single assessment framework, I'm going to come back to you, Keith, to start. What's been your direct experience with it and your initial thoughts?
Yeah, so my initial thoughts, if I had to compare the old framework and the single assessment, I would probably choose the single assessment framework. So just to put it from that perspective, because I feel it's more straightforward. There's less to kind of evidence. So though the regulations are all still the same, if I had a comparison between the two, my choice would be the single assessment framework. But then in terms saying that, I think there is still some improvements that could be made around it. I don't know if that's kind of my perspective on it. If I had to choose the two, I'll go with the single assessment framework.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. Jack, what about yourself?
I have to completely agree with Keith. And I mean, I know Keith had his inspection prior to us. As Keith said, he was one of the first. And I think that for us, the single assessment framework, yes, there are flaws. And I think CQC assessors also know that there are flaws currently. And if I completely agree that I think that there are going to be some providers out there. I mean, we're dual registered, so we are registered with Ofsted as well for a separate part of our service. And in comparing the two, CQC at the moment 100% has. I'm rooting for CQC.
I think I'm going to have to go on the opposite side now just to add a bit of meat to this conversation. No, I'm joking. I'm teasing. Mark, I know have you experienced inspections under the new framework yet?
No. So I fall in the category that many managers that got in contact with us had, which was that we had an inspection that was post the rollout, but was still under the old framework. So there was still a lot of managers, although there was one manager that was telling me she had an inspection a couple of months ago, still under the old framework. So they're contesting the outcome of that. So it's interesting to see what's happening. But just touching on your point that you made before the question around managers and that fear, we did have a number of managers that reached out to me off the back of posts when we were looking for people to join us. They said they would love to. They're still awaiting inspection outcomes, and they just didn't want to risk anything and rock the boat. But which absolutely shouldn't, like you said, should not be the case. There shouldn't be that kind of worry that you would speak and your rating would change, because actually what you do separately from the care you provide, they're two completely different things. But completely understand where managers are coming from.
I mean, for myself, I wanted to love the single assessment framework. I wanted it to be brilliant and I wanted it to work. I can say from my direct experience, it doesn't, in my opinion. I feel like the single assessment framework would work if all of the system processes were in place and also worked. So we had a functioning portal. We could go onto the portal and we could submit our evidence. We could send information remotely. They would come and do their 6-hour inspection, which was promised to us when the single assessment framework was rolled out. Then yes, I'd love it. The fact that we've been through one and it was 3 full days is completely the opposite of what we were sold, and actually was a lot more intense and a lot more invasive than the previous inspection framework was itself. So I feel like in essence, it should work, but I don't feel like they've got everything in place that they need to have in place to make it work. I do feel like there's a huge shortcoming around the ability to send stuff over, and that's for me is the biggest bugbear, because even when they're not on site, they are there requesting everything to be sent over. And I know recently from our inspection, I won't go too much into it, but there was a lot of stuff, and it ended up being nearly 2.5 weeks worth of work just for one inspection, which is mammoth. You know, it's soul destroying for one, but actually we're also trying to run services. And how can we run a service when all we're doing is collecting evidence to provide to a regulator to send over? There's life still happens, you know, life still moves on, and work still happens. And I don't know, I found it clunky, if I'm honest. And in fact, I mean, there's 107 evidence categories that they need to complete. They need 2 to 3 pieces of evidence per evidence category. So the one thing that I'm now taking from this and applying to my entire group is, right, let's just get all that evidence together already, because if they come through the door at any of our other services, I just want to be able to give it them. I don't want to spend all this time searching for it again, because it was difficult, it was hard, and it was long. But I wanted to love it. Mark, you know, we've spoken about it loads, haven't we? We've spoken about how amazing it's going to be. We've spoken about how easy it's going to be. We've spoken about if you get an RI, don't worry about it, because you can submit your evidence monthly and they'll review your score and it'll improve. But actually, you can't go on the portal and do anything at the minute. You can't even register the manager through the portal because it just does not work.
And I think the CQC acknowledged that. I think, you know, they've acknowledged that actually they rolled it out too quickly. There wasn't that listening to providers, to relatives, to people who use care services. They obviously know the portal isn't working. And I think now they're actually putting back on the comms of providers using it and going back to kind of the other methods that are available. I want to talk around preparation, because there'll be a lot of people watching thinking, oh, actually, what should I prepare for? What areas did you focus on in the lead up to your inspection? Are there any areas that you focused on more than others? And obviously I appreciate that you had yours kind of when there wasn't as much information around as there is now. Jack, I'll come to you first.
So for us, it wasn't, we didn't have to really prepare much that we didn't already have in place. It wasn't much different from how it was previously for us. And we was inspected in March. That it was much more around, can you provide me with evidence of feedback, evidence of surveys that we might be doing with stakeholders, stuff that we was already doing, and how we had it saved in our system was already sort of in categories that it was, oh yeah, I've got that. I mean, we was inspected only over 3 categories. 3 key questions. And for us, I think that in preparing, we kind of already had our everything ready as we would before anyway. So I don't know whether I can really kind of answer this question in its entirety, but Keith, I don't know whether you've prepared for this better.
Yeah, sure. So I think Adam's touched on some things already in terms of trying to get his other services ready. So we, in late November, we had kind of started looking at the quality statements. We didn't quite kind of understand everything and what evidence was needed. But in early December, we kind of had the quality statements, and we just put in obvious evidence to each quality statement. And that, I guess, was some form of preparation. And like any good Christmas, that's when they told us that they're coming to inspect just before the week before Christmas. So they warned us about it, probably 3 or 4 days before Christmas. But then the inspection was happening early January. But between then, there was several things we had to send across. And at that time, the portal wasn't live at all. So the request was just to send these things through email. And I remember our registered manager had some personal issues. Her mom wasn't well, so she wasn't around. But the way the service runs is there's several things in place. So we are easy to just go and pull certain things up and send them across. But I remember on the day, I got so frustrated trying to send all the emails across. And I just said, okay, here's all the files on a Dropbox link. And then I spoke to her on Monday. And she said, yeah, that's fine. I managed to access the Dropbox links, though. That definitely made a difference. So anything we needed to send across, we would just drop it into the Dropbox link. But practically to send them by email at the time was just, frustrating. but opposite to Adam, though, we actually enjoyed having that contact over the 2-week period, because it allowed us to actually show how our service was running. Because on previous inspections they were just there for the day, and we didn't feel it actually reflected the true service we are offering, because it was just a shorter period that we are there with them. But with this particular scenario, there was a lot of a lot more interaction, which we felt gave a better reflection of the service, which we felt was a nice thing.
Thank you very much, both of you. And listening to you both talk, I mean, Jack, you spoke there around feedback, and absolutely, we know that is critical. So anybody watching thinking, how do I prepare? You need to look at the touch points you've got with your operational frontline staff. So Jack obviously spoke about surveys, could hold drop-in sessions. Adam, I think you've definitely spoken about in the past around QR codes for staff to be able to leave feedback either anonymously or with their name. And then just kind of listening to you there, Keith, talk about those touch points for those couple of weeks of your inspection. We know from some of the managers that we've spoken to that some of them have had that over a period of 3, 4, 5, and some homes even longer than that. So actually the inspection timeframe is a lot longer now under the new framework than it once was. And I did look at some kind of stats. So on average, and we can talk about quality statements in a bit more detail further on in the show, but on average, they look at 12.3 quality statements, with the most 3 popular ones being looked at are safe and effective staffing, safeguarding, and involving people to manage risks. So I think if there's any areas that you're wanting to prepare now, you should focus on those 3. I'll drop them into the chat so everybody's got them. Just talking off the chat, we've had a question come in. I'll bring it up on the screen from Aaron on LinkedIn. Not having gone through the recent inspection, why did you prefer the new way of inspections, and what's the difference? Jack, I'll come to you first.
For us, for our service particularly, we wasn't inspected under the old framework. Whilst we've set up this company, I'm the owner, but I have gone through inspections previously, and for us, I felt as though it was so much more relaxed. I didn't feel under pressure. It felt like I was talking to a family member or a member of staff about anything. It felt natural, and anything that was raised that, have you thought about this? It wasn't just, you need to do it this way, which I know previously I've had difficulties with different inspectors wanting different things, but it felt as though, have you thought about this, rather than you need to do it this way. And I mean, for us, they arrived on site at 1 p.m. announced, and left at 6 p.m. and the rest was done online. So it didn't even feel like, right, okay, I'm going to have to rearrange this meeting. I'm going to have to do this, do this, do this. For us, it was much more, okay, they're coming in the afternoon. Let's how we normally would with someone coming to visit us. And so that was, the biggest difference, I would say.
And Keith, what about for yourself? I've got a follow-up question off something you just said, Jack, but I'll come back to you. But Keith, what did you prefer in the new way of the inspection? What was the difference?
So I think it seems to be there's a mindset shift where even just from the wording, inspection feels like I'm coming to find something wrong with your service. And then the term assessment's more just like, okay, let's just see where you guys are at, and we'll kind of give a result on that. So I think not only in terms of evidence, that's what it felt like, where it's more an assessment. Okay, we're just going to assess and see where you guys are at. But the inspections previously just felt like, we're coming in as an authoritative figure just to see where we can catch you guys out. So I think that's probably one of the major changes we felt. And then in terms of evidencing, previously with the Chloes, we had folders that we were just putting evidence together. And now that everything's kind of moved online, with our evidence, all we did was just have everything on Excel sheets. And that whole process just made it feel a lot easier, but also their terminology, the way they were kind of having the interactions felt a lot more relaxed, and it didn't feel like they're just particularly coming to find something wrong. So those are probably some of the main things that stand out for me in terms of the different feeling from the old inspection to the current one.
Thank you very much. And before I come to the question I had, Adam, what was your experience like? Because obviously I know that you've been inspected under the old process and obviously the new. Oh, you're on mute.
Unfortunately for us, they came and did all 34 quality statements. All 34. It was epic. Absolutely epic. Unannounced second day. I had to ask for the third day to be not unannounced. We needed to plan what we were doing. But it was everything. Absolutely everything. And even though we'd prepared, it was just, like I say, no stone left unturned. So it's given me a lot of work moving forwards, because obviously I want to be prepared, and I want to have our systems ready so that it's easy to identify where everything needs to be. Changing the way I internally quality assess our services, but also trying to provide the managers with enough sort of information now as to why this evidence is required and what it relates to. But it was just, I don't know. We were just, I think, unfortunate. I'm not saying that it shouldn't have happened. We do need inspecting. We need regulation. I'm all for the CQC. I just want it to be easy. It should feel easy. It should feel fluid. It should feel symbiotic. And it just didn't for us. It just didn't.
And in terms of that collaboration that Jack and Keith have spoken about, did you find that the inspector was more collaborative with you than under previous models? Because you probably would have had a named inspector, did you, previously?
I didn't see a difference. It just felt like the same, but more, in my opinion.
And I think that is something the CQC have said, is that they need to address the average amount of quality statements that they are inspecting. The question that popped into my head, Jack, when you were talking, was around the recommendations from inspectors. Now, I see this quite often in manager groups, and I'm in a couple of WhatsApp manager groups, and it comes up every now and again, is around inspectors that haven't necessarily got experience of being a registered manager or a nominated individual. They're making recommendations to the registered manager about what they should be doing. And I just kind of wanted to gauge kind of your thought process on that. And I guess I've had it a lot from when I used to manage learning disability services, because quite often or not, the inspector had no experience of learning disability services or supporting people with learning disabilities. And I used to struggle because they would say that we should be doing something, even though it would go completely against what maybe human rights would say, or the Mental Capacity Act would say. And I just wondered kind of what your thoughts are on that. I'll come to you first, Jack, then I'll come to all three of you, but Jack, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, and then I had another question on back, but I'll ask that a little bit later. But for us, it felt like it wasn't a formal recommendation. It was sort of planting the seed. Oh, have you thought about doing this? Oh, I like that idea. Have you thought about doing it this way? It didn't feel during the time that they were on site. It didn't feel as though they were saying, okay, because of this, you've got to do this. I will say, though, absolutely, we had shared your experience that I used the term LD, and they said, sorry, one of the inspectors said, sorry, what does that mean? So some parts of it, I absolutely, in fact, it does feel frustrating when you haven't experienced a service like ours, that you're making recommendations, but it didn't feel like a recommendation. It was worded in a way for us that I would take from somebody who has no care background, say, oh, have you thought about doing this? And I've gone, oh yeah, do you know what, great idea. It felt very fluid, and not do it this way, otherwise next time it will be this, because I've told you this now. It didn't feel like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's good feedback. Keith, what about yourself?
Yeah, so with our current inspector, I think we have a fairly good understanding in terms of the relationship. So the relationship we had built with her is if we had any concerns, we would speak to her like before or just discuss things. So I think there are certain things, our service improvement plan, we would just proactively send it to her, things like that when she... I guess our previous inspector left. So we had kind of, when she joined, we had kind of built a really good relationship, and we never felt any kind of lack of understanding or I guess belittling or anything like that. So and she was the same inspector that did our initial inspection. So yeah, from our perspective, I don't think we were... I think we would have different comments from the previous inspector, but the more recent one, I think things were, we didn't feel like there was any advice that she didn't understand the service. So we felt it worked for us.
No, that's good news.
More recently, yeah.
Adam, what about yourself?
No comment. No. I think for me, I'm going to go on a curveball here, and I'm going to address this generally to anyone that isn't a registered manager or running a care service or a home care service. And what I see across the board now is you have your fire risk assessors come in, you have your IPC inspectors come in, you have your ICB come in, you have your contracts come in. You have all these people come in and start saying how we should do things in a home, how we should do this, how you should do that, how you should do this. And actually, they've never been there and they've never done that, and it's just not feasible. And I find that a lot, and I'm finding that more and more. And I am having to push back more and more to some services, because it's like, look, that's fine that you're telling me that that's the best way that we do that. I'm going to tell you how that's going to work in practice, and you tell me whether that's feasible. And 9 times out of 10, they go, well, actually, yeah, it's a bit difficult, that, isn't it? But you need to make sure it's done. And I just feel like there's this unfair, disproportionate expectation now of care services and care providers to give 100% to absolutely everything, which we need to be the best we can be. We need to do the best we can do. The primary focus is providing the best life outcomes for the people we support. That's number one, is the people at the center of our service, the people who we're supporting. But I feel like there's a lot of recommendations that come in from all angles, not just the regulator, from all angles, which just really aren't feasible and have no basis in experienced care. It really does drive me mad. Like absolutely crazy, where it's like, you say this to managers, like, well, this is what they're telling us to do. I'll give you one example. The audit in infectionpreventioncontrol.co.uk, safe management of the care environment. It's an audit to manage the care environment, make sure everything's okay. It's about 180 questions. Like, it's absolutely massive. It's a huge audit, absolutely huge audit, expected of any care home and any nursing home, no matter your size. Now, that sounds doable if you're a huge home, but if you're a huge home, there's more to check. If you're thinking 10% of 100 rooms, that's 10 rooms. If you're thinking 10% of a 20-bed home, that's only 2 rooms. So you'd think, well, it's easier in a 20-bed home. But in a 20-bed home, you probably don't have head of IPC, you probably don't have head of this, you probably don't have department leads. And there's all this amazing stuff that we need to be doing, but actually, it's taken us away from doing what we need to do. And me as a quality person, I'm saying, but we have to do this. And I can hear my managers and they're saying, but it's too much. And I get that. And I kind of want to be able to go back to the councils and to go back to these people who aren't working in care and going, look, we know we need to do this. Is there a simpler, quicker way? Is there a shorter way that we can get the same result? Because it's just not doable. So it's not just the regulator in my mind, Mark. It's everyone giving us recommendations that that just aren't suitable, that just don't enable us to provide great care. I don't even know if that was your question, but I went on one anyway.
No, I
Yeah,
definitely.
sorry.
Go on, Keith.
Yeah, sorry. Can I just add on to that? So what I found, so we had a previous inspection probably like four years ago, and on that inspection, they had picked up that we weren't doing employment history checks. That's what they had highlighted, and I think they had about 7 folders. So the inspector kind of kept on referring to one particular file, and then at the time it was kind of overwhelming. You kind of been cross-questioned and things like that. And then as soon as the inspector left, we double-checked, and there was employment history. There's just an overlap in terms of work history, but there was, when we had gone back and checked it properly. And then from that experience, one of the lessons we learned was to just work on our evidence. So if something's pulled up in a particular regulation, we're going to say, okay, maybe some improvements could be made in this particular area. But then if we are going to do a fair inspection, look at all this other evidence we have gathered for this particular regulation. And I think that's a fair way to look at it, where I think in any organization, any business, there is going to be faults in any service. And I think if those faults are found, us as providers can evidence to say, actually, this has been picked up, but if we are going to do a fair inspection, include all this other evidence. And I think if the inspectors are suggesting recommendations, I'll just as good practice, I think that's welcome as providers, because it's about continue improving and growing. But where it's done in a belittling way, or it's going to paint a negative image of the whole service, then I think that's where there's some uncomfortableness of it. But I think there's some onus on us as providers to say, actually, there's this one bad thing, but then include these other good things we've shown you as well. So I think as providers, there is that responsibility on ourselves to try and, just gather as much to outweigh some of the stuff maybe that does need improvement or that will be picked up.
No, absolutely. Thank you very much, Joel. Just a few questions that have come in, and then Adam, I'll hand back over to you. Jamie has just put great insight so far. Will a recording be made available? There will be the opportunity to watch back. I have shared the link in the comments, so you should have that. It should be available both on LinkedIn, but also on the YouTube channel. Charlotte has put, which I feel like we've answered this question, but Charlotte, if you want any more, then just pop another question in. Do you guys think it's important that CQC assessors and inspectors should have knowledge in health and social care background? What do you guys think if they didn't, would that make your job more difficult? And I think to summarise, we feel they will, but like Jack said, actually, they might come in with a fresh pair of eyes and think of something outside of the box. There's a statement here from Aaron. I understand from a previous inspection manager that CQC have approached ex-inspectors to return to CQC who took redundancy a couple of years ago. I believe this is because they will have relevant experience. There's no sense in primary care inspectors inspecting adult social care. And completely agree. And I think CQC have said that they're going to approach people to come back out of redundancy.
I was just going to say on that, a particular question as well that I think that I don't know as to whether it's more so around because they need more experienced inspectors. From what I have gathered from my assessor or inspector is that so we've been inspected, so we've not had an overall rating. We've been registered since I think it's 2022, maybe 2023. Start January 23, and so far we've still not got an overall rating, and which is extremely difficult when trying to explain that to local authorities. And so for us, we've been inspected, but our overall is still not rated. And we was inspected under 3 quality statements, and my biggest issue at the moment is local authorities not understanding the single assessment framework. The amount that I have to explain and say that we have been inspected, they've just not looked hard enough because it says inspected. And unfortunately, we won't get an overall rating probably for another 5 or 6 years when they eventually cover 80% to get our overall rating. But what I did get from the inspectors that came on site is that they're planning to assess no more than 5 at a time. I know, Keith, you went through all of them. Adam, out of curiosity, quickly, when did you have your inspection?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, and they did all of it. Oh, crikey. I mean, when they inspected me in March, they said, through learning, we're not going to do any more than, say, 5 because we know it's too in depth. And they had said that what we're planning to do is between 3 and 5 every sort of quarter per year. So they'll come out in theory or online 4 times a year is when you'll be sort of a new inspection summary or assessor summary will be on the website. And so I said I've already raised. Well, then, based on that theory, I should have been inspected again, and I'm not going to get my overall rating for another 3 years. And luckily, we're on our local tender, but I know a lot of tenders don't allow you to go on until you've got a rating, and there are some massive clunks based on that.
And it's not even just tenders. You know, think of private people who want to pay for their own care. And are they going to go to a service that doesn't have a rating? Are they going to trust a service that doesn't have a rating? Are they going to understand when we say to them, look, this is a reason why we don't have a rating? Even more than that, there's supposed to be consistency. The CQC framework should be standardized across the country. And what you've just told me, Jack, is completely new to me. I've never heard it explained that way. I've never heard it being said that it was going to be done in that way. So actually, the CQC themselves need to be doing the same thing across the country. They can't be doing one thing in one patch and another thing in another patch. Otherwise, it's not the single assessment framework. It's a multi-assessment framework, depending on where you're at in postcode lottery.
And exactly that. And I think that I'm you're making me change my side a little bit. One thing that we had raised is they'd raised during our inspection, which you'll find on online. They'd raised that actually for one of our individuals that we didn't believe because it was just prompting and there wasn't clear guidance around the time as to what prompting exactly was. That and she was living within our service, or is living within our service, and it was just a sort of a one-off prompt around showering and things like that. And when they had come out to assess, they had noted within our report that we aren't registered for supported living, and we need to be, and therefore there were concerns around that. And we've now added that, and we're registered for supported living. However, when I said, well, please can you then change that on the website because that's the point of the single assessment, they said, no, we'll do that during our next inspection. And I thought the point, from everything I've seen and heard, the point of the single assessment is it's supposed to be almost a live update that will keep updating. When you send us new evidence, whatever it may be, we will update so that you don't see an assessment from 4 years ago. And there's not enough. And back to the question, sorry, that I kind of didn't answer but did, is there's not enough assessors or inspectors to be able to currently deal with what they're currently dealing with, especially if they're planning to assess providers every 3 or 4 months, which it seems like they're kind of reverting back and going back to the old framework by assessing all of the categories in 2 or 3 days. Not going to see you again for 3 or 4 years. And I really hope that for us, that's not the case for us, because otherwise we're not going to get a rating ever.
Yeah, no, I agree. Somebody that I know within the CQC have messaged privately, just saying that they are reaching out to inspectors that have left the CQC because there was a large number that didn't agree with the getting rid of the named inspector model. So actually now they're going back to having named inspectors. They've reached out to those that wanted that model. But it'll be interesting to see. Adam, I promise you I'm coming to you after this. Vanessa has put, I think the figure of 5 has now been discounted. Also, I believe inspection teams are now mixed, meaning adult social care and hospital inspectors to inspect wherever. Adam, over to you.
I've got myself all wound up now, if I'm honest. I think my question is, and this is a bit of a selfish question because I want to know, because we've not had ours yet, is of all the differences of the inspection, one of the ones that doesn't get spoken about a lot, but I think is important, and forgive me if we've asked this tonight, I've spoken about quite a bit, is how does the feedback differ? So I've spoken to some people who have said, well, actually, the feedback's a lot longer now. I've spoken to some people that said it's no different. Our inspectors pre-warned us to say it could take up to an hour and it could be 15 pages long compared to what it would have been in 3 pages. So what's been your experience with the feedback, and how has that differed between the two frameworks? Keith?
Yeah, so our... 2 days, we had contact with our inspector 2 days after the inspector, but it was like she was asking for other documents. And she did say, officially, I can't tell you what the rating is or the feedback, but if I had concerns, I would have brought it up by now. So that gave us some indication that things were okay. And then our actual inspection was the 10th of January. And then we had a feedback meeting, which was probably about 40 minutes. Just online, and then she gave feedback on the different categories, but it was very, very generic. We never went into specific details. So it was just like, oh yeah, staff said the service, they have opportunities to make improvements. That's rough feedback. It wasn't really detailed, but it was just like an overview. And then the actual CQC report, our draft report, we only got back in August. So we inspected in January. And I even messaged Jack at some point to say, have you got your report back? And the thing we've been told, there's been technical issues. So we had, I see Adam's face.
Yeah, I ain't waiting 8 months for my report, I can tell you now.
This isn't what Keith is saying isn't uncommon. There's a lot of managers that said that they were still waiting for an inspection report, so they didn't feel like they could come on and join us to give their version of events. But some of them had been waiting 3, 4, 5 plus months.
Yeah, and it was just put down to a technical error, but we had to keep kind of following up to say, yeah, is there an update and what's happening? And then, but Jack's experience seems to have been different. He seems to have got his report a lot earlier when we caught up, a few months back.
I wonder if technical error is Ian Trenholme's new nickname, because a lot's just come to light since he jumped ship. Jack, what was your feedback experience like?
For me, massively controversial. That it was genuinely just so good. And where would you registered? I can't help but compare with Ofsted being in the news in their lack of mental health support recently. CQC, I felt, were more supportive than than any regulator that I could ever compare with, whether it be, I don't know, hotel inspector or whatever it may be. It felt just smooth. And I mean, surprisingly, but probably because we was inspected or assessed, for only 3 of the key questions, or the quality statement, that we had. I remember saying to what was my allocated inspector, and said, they did tell me on the day that it would be 5 or 6 months until I apparently get it back. I'm not waiting that long. And she said, Jack, it won't be. She wasn't on site that day, and she said, Jack, it won't be. I don't know why they said that, but obviously that is the actual reality. And I had my report back in, I don't know, 5 weeks. And I was like, great, happy, nothing, good to go. And I liked how, like I said, there were some bits they go, actually, you weren't regulated for this, but you should have been. But still, in the areas inspected, I got what would be an equivalent to a good, even though there were flaws, which hopefully their assessment ways have changed, because previously that would have been a requires improvement or inadequate. But it felt very much of, actually, I get this is why, and it felt very, they can apply their own kind of judgment, rather than just tick box exercise.
So mixed across the board then. It doesn't seem to be like the reason I ask is the part of the framework changes was to make inspection reports shorter, easier to read, more manageable, more digestible. I've not seen any of that yet. Do you feel like your reports? I mean, poor Jack, you've not had a full inspection yet, mate, so you've not got a full report. I feel for you. Keith, your report, do you feel like it's smaller or bigger than the previous inspection reports?
That's a good question. I hadn't thought about that, but we were only inspected under SAFE, quality statement SAFE. We weren't done under all 5, so it was only under SAFE. And I guess, just thinking off the top, I guess it does seem smaller from reading it, and I guess it does seem smaller.
The only thing, sorry, Adam, just to come in on delays with inspection reports, and I'll give a shout out to HCR Law, because I'm pretty sure they did an article or a webinar around this, was that there's a number of providers that are waiting for a report. So the inspector's given verbal feedback on the day. There might be actions, recommendations. The report comes out. Months later, the provider's done those actions, or they've implemented that recommendation, or there's feedback in the report that's very damning, but it should have been in the public interest that it should have been released a lot sooner. So actually, HCR Law are supporting providers that need to contest outcomes. And I spoke to a registered manager the other day that was utilising their services because actually a press release was going out, but the inspection report was about 5 months out of date. And actually everything that was in the report, they'd already actioned and identified and resolved. So actually it was going to have a negative impact on their service. And like we've already said, on their local authority contracts that they have. But I'll drop a link to HCR Law in the chat, just in case there is anybody awaiting that knows that there might be something on the inspection report. Adam, back to you, sorry.
So, sorry, just to add on to that. So, yeah, I just don't like surprises. So that wait was very, it was torture, just waiting. But truthfully speaking, one of the things that was like a bad experience with that wait is obviously team members, clients know you've had the inspection, and then like 3-4 months later, they're still asking like, what's the outcome? It kind of feels like us as leaders are hiding something. Where it's like, yeah, we're just waiting. There's a technical error. So that, I guess that wasn't a pleasant experience to kind of keep explaining to clients and team members. Yeah, we've gone through the process, but we just waiting. So that, yeah, that wasn't a pleasant thing to just be waiting, and you're trying to update people, but you have no information to update people on.
Oh no, yes, exactly. And there's only so much you can try and spin the same tale without being made to feel like you're fibbing. I mean, I will say, and I will be clear. I love a CQC inspection. I love being inspected. I love learning. I love growing. I love knowing what we need to do better. I love knowing what we do great. I love knowing what we do okay. I love knowing what we do amazingly. I was just really hopeful that the new inspection framework would have been a lot more fluid and a lot more prepared, shall we say, and just a lot more ready. It just felt very rushed and yeah, it's. I think it's just been disappointing, but well received in areas, and I think that's really what we need to take from this. Mark, I'm just looking at the time, and I don't want to go delving into another area too much. But I wonder, Jack, Keith, whether you might be able to give us just one last tip for providers still awaiting their single assessment inspection or assessment or whatever they're calling it in your area, depending on your inspector. Whilst everyone's waiting for those visits, just give us one more tip around how we can prepare the best that we can do. I'll start with yourself, Jack.
For us, I would say just make sure, it's very similar to Keith actually, is, I mean, I think I uploaded it to one of the Facebook groups, sort of linked documents, or all of them. I don't know which one I uploaded it to, but a spreadsheet in how we gathered evidence and what we feel as though this evidence, because let's be honest, the evidence won't just meet one category or meet 12 of them or whatever it may be, that we created a spreadsheet as to saying this meets this, this meets this, this meets this. And on that spreadsheet, we provided the link to it. So when it came to following up, we said, here's everything. I mean, so we prepared everything prior to it as compared to how we did before in the folders. We had everything sort of ready before, but I would say in preparation, I know a lot of people say that surveys don't work, people don't fill them out. What we have in our service is every time that, if you're a care service with a sort of a base, every time that you sign out on our iPad for signing in and signing out, it asks you a few key questions that we have put in saying, how was your visit? Did you see anything that raises concerns, or do you have any safeguarding queries? The DSL will review this, and any feedback kind of thing. And for us, both the assessors said, I love this. And they had said as well, they put no when it came to, do you have any concerns? So that if it was to ever come to it and I was to have to challenge, I could say, well, they said no concerns on their feedback form when they were signing out. And so for us, the preparation was just make sure you're getting feedback and you're recording it. Make sure your care staff are saying, Bob told me he had a really good day at the park today. They looked at that and it was like, great, you're recording it already. And just make sure that you're recording the feedback is my biggest tip.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great tip. That so much doesn't get recorded, and if it's not recorded, how do you evidence it? Keith, what about yourself?
Yeah, so similar to Jack as well, to start off. So we had all the quality statements, and then what we did is just evidence what we're doing as a service to meet those quality statements. And we had sent this document to the inspector the day before the inspection, and we literally just went through the document we sent her as to kind of talk through what we're doing and adding extra evidence. So we felt that was fantastic. And then just some other advice as well is, I think a lot of times as care businesses, we're trying to run our business according to CQC standards, which the standards are there for a reason. But I think if it's run like any other business where, for example, like Tesco have a complaints policy, and then you're aware of, okay, this is the process if you want to make a complaint. If you're not happy, Tesco want to hear feedback, etc. So the biggest advice I think I would want to leave with people is run your service like any other business, where any other business has processes. Every other business has the people involved and technology, and just focus on those three aspects, and naturally you'll find you falling in line with the CQC regulations and CQC regulations. So the process is about, one process could be about how we evidencing things, and then so that's an example of process. The other one could be about people. So what's the culture like? What's the vibe in the team? What do you guys stand for? Is there a growth mindset? And then the next one is the technology. What things can you put together to bring the processes and the people together? So I think that's probably one of the main things I would leave with people is just run your care business like any other business. And from Tesco to Sainsbury's to a logistic company, all of them has those three components: processes, people, technology. And I think if we're going in with that sort of mindset, we'll start meeting all the regulations naturally. And it's definitely, has leaders, it just makes our job easier because the team's following up things, the process have been done, and the technology is kind of meeting those standards.
No, thank you very much. Adam, any tips from you?
Not yet. I just think, just get yourselves prepared. Know your quality statements. Know your evidence categories. Know how you're going to be collating that evidence, and just be confident. Just be confident in your knowledge, confident in what you're doing. Your job hasn't changed. The way you do things haven't changed. It's just the way you're getting this evidence across. So just continue to do what you can do best, and make sure what you're doing is correct. It's all I can say.
And the only thing from me, just touching on what we've spoken about around feedback, get it from as many people as you can: the professionals, the people you support, the relatives, the local authority, literally whoever you can get it from, and on a regular basis. But utilize that feedback. Make sure that you're evidencing what you've done with it to make positive changes to the service, either whether it's for the staff or the people you support. And I'd also just check out the Skills for Care workforce plan, because there's a number of recommendations that the CQC have committed to. So those changes will be coming down the line at some point. And we've obviously got sustainability as well, which is due to be inspected on, and it will be scored on. So if you haven't yet got a sustainability plan, make sure you definitely get one of those. Adam, back to you.
Well, I just want to thank you both, Jack and Keith, for joining us tonight. I think it's been a great insight, especially for providers who haven't gone through the single assessment framework yet themselves. Thank you for giving up your Tuesday evening. The Tuesday bake-off comes back as well, and you've given up your night and you're not watching Prue Leith and Paul Hollywood cram as many innuendos into a profiterole as they can do. But, huge thank you for you both joining us. Mark, what are we on next week? And I believe we're at the Care Show.
Yes, I will not lie. I do not have the spreadsheet up for next week, so I don't know what is next week. But Care Show-wise, yes, we've got 2 talks at the Care Show. So day one, we are joined by Julie Garrity and Caroline Barker, and we're just talking around the regulatory reflections with all the changes that are happening, with obviously the report that's come out, and just how we continuously improve in care quality. So that's on the Keynote Theatre at 10:30 on day one. And then the second day, we are with Hannah Montgomery from Grace Cares, and we're talking around how you can evidence sustainability in home care to meet the framework. And for anybody that didn't watch, a couple of weeks ago, we have worked with Hannah to create a sustainability guide book that will be available. So there will be a free version and a paid version with all the money raised going to charity. But it breaks down literally step by step how you can evidence and meet that framework with loads of resources and tools around sustainability. So that is on day 2. And my eyesight is not good enough to see 12:15 on day 2 on the Home Care Theatre. So I can test
I'm just thinking I look like I've been stung by 15 bees in that photo. I've lost a lot of weight since I've had that photo. We must
It's
get
all
some
right, because
photos.
that photo of me is really old. I think that was kind of when I had one child, so I'm talking about 10 years ago.
We must get some new photos of the Care Show. Yeah, do come and check us out at the Care Show. Come and find us. We'll be out and about, walking around, getting to meet everybody. 9th, 10th of October, and we're going out for a bit of grub in the evening, a bit of a catch-up, a bit of a socialising event. So if you want to be a part of that, do get in touch and let us know. So until then, no idea what we're talking about next week, but join us anyway, live as always at 7:30. All of our sponsors are running across the bottom of the screen right now, but a last-minute shout-out to everyone. So we have Prosperwell, the UK's leading digital marketing agency, CBAT, the Care Business Associate Training for all your training needs, Attis Care by Attis Insurance Brokers. We've got Log My Care. Go check them out if you're new to the world of digital care planning. They're a good place to start or end. I'm not saying just use them as a stepping stone. Log My Care, perfect. Go and use them full term. And we've got Florence, connecting healthcare professionals with shifts and training around the country. Jack, Keith, a huge thank you so much for joining us tonight. Mark, as always, it's been an absolute pleasure. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and we will be back next Tuesday at 7:30. We're better than Bake Off. Bake Off's on catch up, so go and watch it on catch up. I know we're on catch up, but we're better live. So watch us and leave Bake Off for catch up afterwards. Take care. Good night.
Thank you both. Good night.